do our oil changes at work.
Yeah, I've been comfortable continuing for a while. $47. I won't say never, but right now.
Okay. Ready, Sherry.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, 7 p.m. Bear,
Here.
Briggs,
Here.
Coulter,
Here.
Heidrich, Holtmeyer,
Here.
Patke, Reed,
Here.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated June 5th, 2023? Bear,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Reed,
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye. Need a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Wessel, second by Holtmeyer to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Next, please.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the collector's treasurer's report summary for February 2023, investment report for February 2023, final payment request, Fairgrounds Pavilion Concrete, final payment request, Library HVAC System, final payment request, Skate Park Siding and Soffit, fireworks display, and liquor license renewals.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Bear, second by, sorry, I missed it, guys.
Holtmeyer.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda consent is approved.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments, Board of Appeals reappointment.
Okay, if I could indulge you guys. Herewith submit for your approval the following reappointment to the Board of Appeals. Matthew Coleman, term ending of June of 28. Is this a multi-approval or individual?
Individual.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Briggs, second by Coulter. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, guys. Okay, I submit for your approval the following for reappointment to the Board of Public Works. Brad Mitchell. He's been on there a long time, done a great job. Term ending is June of 2027.
Make a motion. I'll second it.
Motion by Coulter, second by Briggs. All those in favor of Brad say aye.
Aye.
That's approved. Okay, I hereby submit for your approval the following for appointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission. John Freitag. This will be his first one.
New blood.
New blood, that's correct.
I'll make that motion to. Second.
Motion by Bear, second by Wessels. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Al. I hereby submit for your approval the following for reappointment to the Police Department. Jim's not here tonight, but it's him. Date effective is the 15th of July, expires in 2024, same date.
Could we enter into the minutes that there was a lot of discussion about this since he's not here?
Only if you create it. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Coulter.
Second.
Second by Bear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Last one, guys. I herewith submit for your approval the following for reappointment to the Police Department. There's about a dozen names here. And just to explain, we did some realignment. When was that?
Last year.
Yeah, last year.
So that's why there's so many names on the list at one time for you, is because that all came up.
Move we approve.
Okay? Motion by
Second.
Wessels, second by Bear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that's passed. Thank you, guys.
Public hearings, special use permit 805, 809, and 811 East 3rd Street, temporary parking lot.
All right, yes. Your only public hearing on your agenda tonight is for a special use permit for a parking lot. It's how it's being described in the application. For those three parcels there, the the hospital actually owns that entire block, but there are still existing today all the original lots from there. Under our current code, we don't have a special use permit for temporary parking. We don't have a definition for that. But what we do have is what's a definition of hospital services. And so Darren and I actually met with hospital staff, and we recommended that the smartest way forward for their kind of first phase of development of this block would be to go for a special use permit for hospital services for what they are calling a temporary parking lot. And so you can see here on the aerial, it is at the corner of 3rd and Hancock. And so it's that southwestern corner there, those 3 specific parcels. And actually the zoning, that block has 2 different zonings. At one point, a previous owner did want to develop that into duplexes. So that's why that orange striping shows R2 overlay. I don't think that ever came to fruition, but regardless, that entire block has been raised. So there is a split zoning on the block, but in this specific case, the special use permit is on the R2 overlay section. As for the site plan that was submitted, you can see here they are proposing to utilize an existing entrance. There used to be an alley that ran through that entire block. Again, even I think before the hospital owned it, that alley was vacated before it was sold, and so there's no utilities or any reason to keep any easement through there. But the apron on Hancock still exists today, and they are planning to utilize that for the entrance there, as you can see, and then that single entrance in here. They are proposing 52 parking spaces. There's no handicap parking shown on here, but obviously this wouldn't be for their patients and customers that are closest to the door. This is for overflow parking, so staff agreed that it wasn't necessary for handicap parking. They do also show on here, their civil engineer showed amended soils in this area that follows the topography. That is for the increased runoff from this pavement. That allows for more permeable soil, so that way they don't increase any runoff into the neighborhood, so that meets our code. And they can submit the specs of that to our engineering department when they actually get grading plans to make sure that it meets all codes. But for site plan purposes, this is sufficient. And then the last thing to point out is that there is a proposed crosswalk here. Later on your agenda tonight is actually a code amendment in our traffic code to allow for that crosswalk, just because crosswalks do have to be called out by ordinance. So that's on the agenda later tonight as well. And I just wanted to point out here kind of the need for the parking. This is just a Google image. This is from October of 2022. But I think any time of day recently is really going to show that parking along 3rd Street, along Hancock. So obviously it's well needed. So staff recommends approval of this, and last week it went to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they unanimously approved it as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any plans on maybe down the road making this existing parking lot bigger? Or-
I would let the applicant answer that.
Okay.
Yeah. I understand this is phase 1, but just because our code does not have temporary uses,
Sure.
we're just approving this as a permanent parking lot for now. But
Okay.
Any other questions for Sal?
Any other questions for Sal, you guys, before we let hospital rep come up? Please, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor Hagedorn and members of the City Council. I'm Eric Eloff. I'm president of Mercy in this community, and I appreciate your question, Councilmember Reed. Our vision for this block is to expand the parking long-term, but to work with the city and the state to create a nice berm, particularly on Highway 47. As commuters approach Washington from Warren County over the bridge, it is an entry point, a welcoming point into the city of Washington. The current signage there is a little underwhelming, and we would like to work with you and create some kind of a better welcome to Washington sign, and maybe even reference to Mercy on it as well. Right at the north, I guess that would be the northeast corner of that full lot where it's being indicated right now. And then create a berm along 47 so that as commuters come in, they're not just looking at a parking lot on the right side. They might see some trees and it might look softer in appearance. But our long-term need is we are continuing to grow in this community. A lot more patients are selecting us, staying local for healthcare, and we're now 120 coworkers more than we were a year ago. We're at about 1,100 when you combine both the hospital the hospital complex on the north and our south campus on Patients First Drive. So this request is a function of needing to get off the street as quickly as we can. We get complaints from both our patients and our coworkers that there's not enough parking, particularly Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, and it's aggravating to them. And so this is a short-term, hopefully rapid solution, but the long term is to do a kind of a nicer job around a full parking lot there that then can decompress the patient parking across 3rd Street. We owe it to the neighbors to get off the street. We're there, like Sal said, every day of the week. It stretches all the way down the block, and it runs on 3rd Street too in front of those residents. And so we'd be grateful for your support. I've not heard any negative comments yet from the area residents. There may be some, I don't know, because it's parking after all, but it's kind of what we need to have to continue to grow healthcare in this community.
Eric, what's your timetable on that section?
The final section or this?
No, this one
This
right
one.
here.
Well, with your support, we'd like to get moving on it right away. We've secured the capital for Mercy to move as quickly as possible on it. We'll go to a bidding process afterwards, select a local contractor qualified to do the work, and hopefully get it done yet this calendar year. Mark is the hope.
Thanks, Eric.
Got it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Would anyone else care to speak about the parking across from the hospital? Great. Any other discussion, you guys?
I'll make a motion to put it in the minutes. Second.
Motion by Bear, second by Holtmeyer to put it in into the minutes, yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's approved.
An ordinance granting a special use permit for temporary parking at 805, 809, and 811 East 3rd Street, Mercy Hospital in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Holtmeyer. Guys have any other questions? Something to add? Okay. Go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance granting a special use permit for temporary parking at 805, 809, and 811 East 3rd Street, Mercy Hospital in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Bear?
Yes.
Patke? I'm sorry. Nope, he's not here. Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Wessels?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
By your vote, the ordinance passes.
Citizens' comments?
Does anyone in the audience have any comments? Okay, thank you.
Report of Department Heads, 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
Mary, Tammy?
Hello.
Pull it down.
Was a little bit taller than I was.
That's all right. Pull it down.
Sorry about that. I'll talk about the big report that you have in front of you. It's the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2022. The first part is the introductory section. I won't go into a whole lot of information about that. That's just the letter transmittal about the city, the principal officials, the organization chart, and then the certificate of achievement that was received for the 2021 ACFR, they call it ACFR now instead of CAFR, report, and that was the 13th year that the city received the Certificate of Achievement Award on the financial statements, so that's very good. Then if you turn over to page 1 in the financial section, you have our independent auditor's report. This report, it tells you, gives you our opinion, and you'll see on page 1, the second paragraph, the city has an unmodified opinion on their financial statements which is the highest form of assurance an entity can receive on their financial statements. You'll see there in the second paragraph, it says, "In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental funds, the business type funds, the discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Washington, Missouri as of September 30, 2022, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America." So this is what we call unmodified opinion. So that's a very good opinion. We also will be issuing a single audit report because the city expended over $750,000 in federal awards for this fiscal year. We will be issuing a single audit report. I don't anticipate any problems with that report either. Starting on page 5, we have the management discussion analysis. This is a short synopsis of what happened during the year in the financial statements. First of all, it talks about the government-wide financial statements, which puts the information, it gives you all the information of the capital assets, all the infrastructure of the city, less all the debt of the city. So you see the assets and deferred outflows of resources exceeded its liabilities and deferred inflows as of the close of the fiscal year by $85.5 million net position. Of this amount, $6.4 million is unrestricted net position, which can be used for the government's ongoing obligations to its citizens and creditors. And then the city's total net position increased approximately $3.9 million. And you can see more information about this in the financial statements. On page 7 is the government-wide financial statements. This is a little condensed statement for you. So you'll see this year we had total net assets of $133.8 million. Last year we had total assets of $131.9 million. We had deferred outflows of resources of $3 million this year, $2.3 million last year. You had total liabilities this year of $48.1 million compared to $47.6 million. Then you had deferred inflows of resources this year of $3.2 million compared to $5.1 million in the prior year. So that left you a total net position this year of $85.5 million compared to $81.6 million in the prior year. There's more detailed information in the financial statement following. The changes in the net position is on page 9. It's the condensed information. You'll see there again in 2022, the total revenues for the government-wide statement is $29.9 million compared to the prior year of $27.9 million. And this had to do, it looks a lot like with the sales tax increasing in 2022 versus 2021. In total expenditures, you had $26.1 million compared to the prior year of $22.2 million. So you still had a positive increase in net position of $3.9 million compared to the prior year of $5.6 million. More detailed information of this information can be found in the detailed financial statements, which actually starts on page 15. As I said before, this is more detailed information. I won't go into a lot of detail on the financial statements. I did present the financial statements to the Finance Committee, and I was very happy that you got this committee back and going. I did appreciate that. I do like to see that committee going. We'll skip right over to page 17. This is what you're used to seeing, your governmental funds. And everybody wants to know, how much money do you have? Okay, well, technically, I would say. So total assets of the general fund, $17.9 million. Now, of course, you can't spend all that because you have some loans receivable that you're not going to receive right away, so that's why they are non-spendable fund balances down at the bottom. Something new this year I wanted to point out is the lease receivable. That was a new GASB that came about. It was GASB 87 that said you had to record all your leases. You don't really have any material leases where you're the lessee. You are the lessor. So really you have, I think these are cell phone towers. that you actually lease, and you lease them for a long period of time. So that's why it's a receivable and not a payable on here. Then you had total liabilities of 3.2 million. And then again, the deferred inflows from the leases of 1.1 million, because of course, you're not gonna get all that revenue, and this year it's going to be extended for however many years the the lease is. So then you had total fund balances of $13.5 million, and of that, 1.5 million is unassigned because you have some amounts that are committed for the stormwater, 4.2 million, for the volunteer fire, 1.6 million. And then you also have some assigned fund balance for subsequent years' budget of 700,000, which means you planned on using that for the 2023 fiscal year. So really you had 1.5 million of unassigned at the end of September 30, 2022. The other information in this report shows capital improvement sales tax, transportation sales tax. You have a debt service of the certificates of participation. Those are all, then you have, in the back, you have other governmental funds, which are the TIFs and the vehicle replacement fund. These funds are restricted money. You can't use the money for anything except for their purpose, specified purpose, such as the capital improvements sales tax and the transportation sales tax. You can only use that money for that specified purpose. And starting on page 19, you have the revenues, changes in revenues and expenditures. So for the general fund, you had 14 million in revenues. You had expenditures of 13 million, leaving you a positive revenues over expenditures of 423,000. You had some transfers in and out which left you use of financial resources of $305,000 in the general fund, but it still left you a positive net change in fund balance of 118,000 for the general fund. On page 21 is your proprietary funds or your water, stormwater, solid waste funds. I won't go into a whole lot of detail on this. You have more information in the back on this, on the solid waste, the water, sewage, and solid waste. The financial, starting on page 24 is a summary of significant accounting policies. Like I said, nothing really changed this year for the city except for implementing GASB 87 for the leases. And it wasn't a big deal for Mary. Well, it was a big deal. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It did take a lot of work. I'm not saying it didn't take a lot of work, because it really did. But you have to go in, you have to figure out, are these leases really GASB 87, if they're applicable or not applicable? So it took a long time. I did send Mary spreadsheets ahead of time, which I know she used, and I appreciate that she used those to help us along on that. So it took us a long time. So for that 1 million that's sitting there on leases, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it took a long time to figure that out. Let's see. The only other thing I like to note on this page 2, on page 33, of course, if you have bank balances or CDs or something like that in the bank accounts, you have to have anything over 250 has to be secured or collateralized at the end of the year. And you notice at the top of page 33, it does say the city and its component units bank balances were entirely secured or collateralized with securities held by the city or by its agent in the city's name or by a letter of credit. And I know Mary receives those at the end of every month, and she monitors that. And this is just something we have to make sure and note in the financial statements. Like I said before, there's not a whole lot of new information in your financial statements. I can let you peruse that as there's no new debt this year. Everything's being paid down, so that's very good in your debt. Let's see. I think we talked about this a little bit over on page 46, the loggers information. Last year you had a net pension asset of 11.1 million. This year you had an asset of $8.1 million. And with that large net asset, I would think that your rates that you have to pay into loggers went down just a little bit, and they'll probably go down a little bit more because that's such a large number. But the city is paying everything into loggers like they're supposed to. This does not change any benefit changes at all. It's just the amount that we have to pay into loggers, or excuse me, the city has to pay into loggers to keep up with their net pension liability and how they look at that. So, let's see. Then on the back pages, on page 53, I do have the future accounting pronouncements. I think the biggest one might be GASB 96, which I know I'm going to talk to Mary about here soon. On the subscription-based information technology, it's going to be like GASB 87, how you calculate it. I'll get again with Mary, and we'll figure out what actually applies and what doesn't apply to this, just like we did with the other one. Then you have your budget to actual on page 57 for the general fund. I'm not going to go through a whole lot of this. And then there's more information in the back schedules. As I said before, I really like the statistical section, except when my older person likes to really look at the information and question me on it. But that's fine. I found the answer, or else we'll get it.
His ignorance, that's all.
That's fine. I'm just teasing you. But starting on page 78, it gives you 10 years of financial information. I do like the 10 years of data. It does help you to see where the city has been and how it's really progressed through the years. So, and then all, of course, the GASB pronouncements that changed throughout the years too are back there and what changed. So, also gives you information about your tax levy and things like that, how that's changed during the years. So it is some useful information if you happen to get a chance to look at it. I didn't have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses with internal controls, anything that we tested. And I do think that's a plus. That's a very good thing. We didn't have any disagreements with management or anything. Everybody at the city is always willing to talk to us, and I do appreciate that. I know I bug your engineers a lot too, but they do a lot of grants, so I bug them a lot, but that's okay. They're very good to talk to me. Everybody is. I don't have any problem, and I do want to say that I really appreciate that, and I do appreciate Mary and her staff for all the help, because they put a lot of time and effort into these statements. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
You had mentioned at the Finance Committee, you had nothing to do with the process itself, but you had mentioned one area of concern and the reason I bring it up is because we're going to be discussing some things later on our solid waste program. You had mentioned a slight concern you had there.
Oh, I didn't say, did I say it was a concern? I didn't.
Well,
I didn't think it was a concern. It's just, okay. Let's go back to, hold on a minute. Let me find it for sure. It's in the enterprise funds. So if we look back at page 21, and you look at the solid waste, you'll see that down towards the bottom, the solid waste funds has a negative unrestricted net position of $3 million at the end of the year. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because you have a landfill care liability of $7 million in that fund. So it would just be the way you would have to look at it. I don't necessarily consider that a bad thing, but the landfill care liability does make it to be a negative figure when you're looking at the statements. So that is a little bit different so that does make you have a negative net position in your enterprise funds, that large liability. That's what you were talking about, correct? For me?
so I think so.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Landfill fee increase.
Hey, Charles.
Set it up on a tee for
That's a segue.
All right, so we're here to talk about the landfill and possibly increasing the fees out there. And we did meet, the Solid Waste Committee met twice over the past couple months to talk about this, so this is kind of a generalization of what we talked about, and then we can ask questions from there. So, give you an overview of the landfill forecast plan here. So based on the current amount of trash that we're getting, the rate that we're getting it in, the landfill will be full and we'll be closing it in 2027. And then the plan is to build a transfer station before that in 2026. And then the landfill lease is up in 2030. So if for some reason we had to extend, past the 2027, we really don't want to extend further than 2030 because then we have to extend the lease. So basically why we're here, these numbers. So to build the transfer station, we need $3.5 million. We need almost $5 million in closure costs when we close in 27, and then we have to have $2.2 million in post closures that we have to have for the entirety of having the landfill for perpetuity afterwards. So on the right is kind of a breakdown of when we need that money. We kind of just put that 454 in there. That's that post-closure fees, just kind of broke out over those 5 years so that we have those by the end. But so that's what we need. And then here is what we have cash on hand projected for the next couple of years. So obviously looking at that.
This is based on the current fee structure.
Yeah, yes, based on the current fee structure. Yeah, we are severely lacking to cover all of those costs that we have coming up here. So, and just a note, so we're talking about solid waste, so that includes landfill, refuse, and recycling. The landfill covers the cost mostly for the refuse and the recycling. But, so yeah, our current rates are at $30 for anything under a ton. That's just a flat, fee that people pay if they're under a ton, and then over a ton, you pay $80 per ton currently. So we raised the rates back in 2018, so we kind of took a look at some surrounding landfills and got an idea of what they were charging. So at the time, we were at $70 a ton, so you could still see St. Louis was above us, but we were pretty much on par, I guess, with a lot of them, Jefferson City, Valley Park, a couple were under us, and then we did this again recently in 23 here, and you can see how much a lot of these other landfills like Champ Landfill, Valley Park, they really jumped up, Timber Ridge, even the Prairie Valley and some of the other ones, they all had significant increases in the last 5 years. So it's kind of what we're basing these on. So what's our proposal? It is doubling the landfill fees. So $30 to $60 for anything under a ton, and then charge $160 a ton from $80 a ton. And then we can talk about when we would, enact that. We were meeting with some of our top haulers, and one of them mentioned billing, so we threw out maybe waiting till October 1st just to kind of accommodate their billing cycles. But if we need to do it sooner, we can do that too. So now looking at the numbers, so the bottom ones are what we're currently projected with our current fees, and then the top one is if we double the fees, what we'll have cash on hand. And that's not taking out any of the costs that we have, so.
And I just want to stress on that too, that's based upon the fact that we maintain the amount of tonnage that's coming into the landfill. Obviously, you raise the rates, everybody's going to sharpen their pencil and start looking at where the best spot to go. But from the previous slide that you had, you can tell that's why a lot of them are coming to us, and that fee is only going to, that's why you're going to fill up if you're not going to have any money there to go ahead for the transfer station. So that's the biggest concern, the takeaway that we talked about with the committee.
Yeah.
So
The other side of that, I know the discussion said that, and if that were to happen, if enough of them pull out and start going elsewhere, it would go beyond 27 then.
Yeah, then,
We would, our capacity would stay down
right, we'd have
also.
longer to fill up the landfill, so we just stretch that out. And then, like I said, we could go past 2030, but then we have to renegotiate and extend the lease and all that, but something we might have to do, because at our current rate, we just won't meet those goals to get the transfer station and have closure and post-closure costs, so.
What is the transfer station, what is it?
Transfer station, it's basically just, a spot where we can fill up a semi-trailer full of trash, and then we can take that to another landfill. So it's a spot where we can dump trash here and then haul it away to an actual landfill somewhere else. That way, people don't have to drive all the
It
way
might
to
take
St.
3
Louis.
trash trucks to fill a tractor trailer. Consolidate. That's all they're doing.
It would still be a
Just
spot
not
for our
putting it in the
citizens
ground
to
here.
dump and everywhere.
Leave it.
And we're paying someone else to take care of it then?
We would still be taking care of it, but we're paying someone to design it. That's what that cost is the design of the transfer station and to build it.
And the construction, right?
Right.
But you have, I guess what you're getting into is operations afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, because you're going to be paying also, where are you taking it?
Right.
Right,
not gonna
someone's
take
gonna
it
have
for
to haul
free.
that, yeah.
And that's where you look at your fees of who all's coming in
Yeah.
and who's used to coming in here, and that's where those fees are gonna have to go ahead and obviously pay for that contract.
Yeah. And that's one of the takeaways. Like even at doubling these rates, we're still gonna have to keep monitoring this. We may have to increase the rates in another year or two, or look at increasing the rates of the citizen refuse or some other options if we're not meeting these goals.
Got an idea on where to build a new transfer station?
Yes, we've got 10 acres out there that we purchased
Yep. Got the spot.
right
to
next
go.
to it in
Pull
2020.
into the landfill, just keep going
Yeah.
and on the right.
Yep, right over there on the right. So we secured that from Struckoffs back in, as Sal said, 2020. There was discussions about that. I mean, and this is before your time on the council or whatever, but there was back in, was it 18 or 17, Mary, when we were talking about doing the transfer station then? The city really didn't have the funds in place to go ahead and do that unless they took out of, the use tax fund or something along those lines. And we didn't really want to do that, so that's when we made the decision to go ahead and open up another cell, keep it open, make sure we kept it, an eye on our fees with regards to it, so we had enough money in 2028, like the numbers that you're seeing. So it's just a matter of checking those on a regular basis now and making sure. And so this is what you're going to need in order to go ahead and get that transfer station in. And the ability for us to go ahead and determine the rates for our citizens as well, too. Keep in mind, 20%, correct me if I'm wrong, 20% of the residents in town, that's about how much goes in there on a daily basis. The other-
80% of our trash comes from outside of the city. Water.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Correct. So, and we were on track, like 2-3 years ago, to be hitting these numbers, but things have, cost of everything. have
When the
gone
market
up.
changes and the fees go up on
Right.
the other, at the other landfills, we've got to react as well.
And these landfills aren't very close together either.
No,
So,
you
I
can see from
mean,
that previous slide, it's,
there's only 6 of them in the whole metro area. 6, 8 of them, so.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, didn't we get a lot of them? I mean, they would go to Timber Ridge down there in Washington County, I believe.
Yep.
Was a lot of, where if they didn't come here, they would go there.
Yep, that sounds right. Yep.
It looks like we got to raise.
Huh?
We got to raise rates.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to catch up now for something that should have been done a while ago.
You just have to constantly keep up with it now in order to make sure that we've got the funds set aside to do the transfer station.
Right, and that's all we can do, is keep an eye on it, see how much the landfill fills up. Like you said, if we get less trash, we keep monitoring how much space we have left and when that
What, you
target goal, the closing date shifts and all that.
said you talked to some of the trash haulers. What do they think about these new rates?
They seem
We talked to
okay.
one, we met
Yeah, we
with
talked to one. I think Andrea talked to one today on the phone. They seem to understand other landfills are increasing their rates. I mean, obviously, they'll take a look if they can make their operations work to take it somewhere else. They may look at that, but like you can see, I mean, it's a long way, so
Right.
they seem receptive. I mean, they just were asking about passing that cost on to their, users and all that,
Right,
so.
right.
We need to do the same thing at the compost too. At least double that.
We did.
We already did it.
We did it while you were out, buddy.
While you were out.
Took care of that.
I said, I wish Dwayne was here.
Now, Dwayne, that doesn't, if you're a resident and you want to haul a load of limbs out there, it's still free.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's not really gonna touch.
And I think that even if you hire, if you hire a contractor and he's got a check in his pocket that you live at 207 MacArthur and you just delivering this for me, I think that's still a free gig there, but I mean, for the normal guy, the tree trimmer.
If he's commercial. it looks
If he's
like-
commercial tree
if he's
trimmer, there's a
commercial, it'll
fee.
be a different fee, yeah.
We do. We pass that. I'll be happy to.
Especially if
Yeah.
people are from, your ward, then it goes
Right.
there. Or here, I mean,
We just dump our shit in the river.
Don't say that.
I say that out loud.
Yeah, you did. Strike that. Have our DNR friends back in the front row.
Strike that from the record, please.
I think the game plan is, though, with what we're proposing, we would have these rates to be changed and have those to you at your next council meeting. If the council doesn't have any changes, we would have it at the July 17th council meeting for you to consider at that time. And if everyone's okay, we're fine, I think, with waiting to start the new rates until October the 1st. That way it's the start of a new budget year too. It always makes sense that way, so.
Give people, give the haulers a chance to,
Fill it
do their
before it
billing and
raises.
stuff like that and prepare for it. Yeah, right. So.
All right.
Other questions, guys? Great.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
Ordinances and resolutions, an ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a statewide transportation improvement program on-call work zone enforcement program agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission.
Holtmar.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
Got anything on it, Darrell? Jim had a letter within your packet.
Yes, I have the copy of the letter. It's basically, to make it simple, is whenever MoDOT is doing highway work anywhere in the city limits of Washington, they will pay our overtime rates to off-duty officers to do traffic control. I'm sure you've seen it on I-44 or 70 or other agencies do it all the time. It's just, we're doing it now, so. And they will reimburse the city. The first project is, it's called a work order. For every project, they will issue a work order. The first work order is going to be Highway 100 projects, and they have allotted $35,000 to cover officer overtime to be out there in a marked patrol unit. So,
So Darrell, that's an 18-month I saw in there. in
it's
the letter.
actually the whole thing is a 5-year deal.
It's 23 to
Right.
27.
But that 35,000 was for that first project.
Yes.
And I think they were anticipating around possibly 18 months.
They're guessing, the way inflation and everything is changing times for all the construction projects.
But if there's another project, there would be something over and above that 35,000.
That's correct.
And is that 35,000 going to cover any overtime needs that you think?
Yes, that will take care of it.
Okay.
Other questions? Second reading.
An ordinance authorizing and directing execution of a statewide transportation improvement program on-call work zone enforcement program agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. Baird?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Wessels?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
By your vote, ordinance 7A passes. Read, please.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code Schedule X Pedestrian Crosswalks, Table XA Pedestrian Crosswalks of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Briggs.
Introduced by Briggs.
And I believe I mentioned earlier, this is just the crosswalk for 3rd and Hancock.
No discussion? Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code Schedule X Pedestrian Crosswalks, Table XA Pedestrian Crosswalks of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Bair?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Wessels?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
By your vote, 7B passes. C, please.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code Schedule V Restricted Parking, Table VA No Parking at Certain Times of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmar.
Introduced by Holtmeyer.
And this is basically just on Rand Street there between Roberts and the alley north of that. There used to be, or there is some ordinance saying that there's no parking during certain times. Basically, that was for the shoe factory when they had shipments, is what I'm being told. So we're just cleaning up the the code and getting rid of that if it's no
Long
longer in
overdue
use.
cleanup.
Is that where you park?
No. Just saying we haven't had any shoes go out of that plant in a long time.
Second reading, please.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Title III Traffic Code Schedule V, Restricted Parking, Table VA, No Parking at Certain Times of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri. Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Wessels?
Aye.
Reed?
Yep.
By your vote, 7C passes. D, please.
An ordinance annexing 4.09 acres as C2 General Commercial into the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Briggs.
Introduced by Briggs.
All right, yes, we, actually, about 2 months ago, we already had a public hearing on this annexation, and it went to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they voted unanimously in favor of it. The reason we delayed it was because there were some discussions between the applicant and administration in our sewer department to make sure sewer hookups and everything were understood and in agreement before we had annexation done. That has been worked out, and so now we just need to pass an ordinance annexing this. And the good news is this was one of our last few donuts. I think out of the 3 we have, this is one of them. So this is the 4.09 acres at Highland Meadows, where the old Jasper Farmhouse used to be. They are going to bring it in as C2 General Commercial, matching the zoning to the north. There is a house there and some agricultural uses. I believe some pigs have always been raised there for the fair. We have told them that that can be grandfathered in and continue to be utilized as those uses, but the actual zoning will be C2 to allow for future redevelopment.
Even with the house that's located on the northern end of the property, if you can see that one exhibit, there's several squares and rectangles there. That top one is a house. They intend on occupying as such. But like Sal said, they can continue to do that in C2 zoning district without having to go ahead and change that. You will see a preliminary plat in the future and a final plat that will show how these lots will go ahead and be divided up yet. But it's key to go ahead and get the annexation ordinance in there first.
Questions, guys? Okay, second reading, please.
An ordinance amending an ordinance annexing 4.09 acres of C2 General Commercial into the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Bear?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Wessels?
Aye.
Reed?
Yes.
Yay, 7D passes.
Commission, Committee, and Board reports. Preliminary plat approval, Highland Meadows, Plat 9.
All right. Tonight, this is the request for a preliminary plat, so not a final plat, but preliminary plat in order to subdivide the lot you see here highlighted, actually what we've been calling the High Street extension. Obviously, this is an older aerial. High Street now has been extended all the way south and connected to Sophia, but way back in 2016 when Riverbend Estates first started their first phase, they had purchased all of this to allow for phase 2, phase 3 that is there now today, the 3-story, and then be able to break this up into phase 3 and 4. And so as you can see here, it's still zoned Senior Community District. That's a zoning district that we no longer have as a requestable district, but when we updated our code in 2018, anything that was existing senior community remained that zoning. It essentially is a planned residential district that allowed for I guess more unique and dense housing styles for 55 and up, which as you can see, they've continued to develop there. And then here is the plat. So this is a little confusing because it's shifted on its side. So north is actually
North's going that way.
over this way. So here is High Street on the bottom here. So you can see lot A2 and A1 that they're creating. They do actually have, per code, the right-of-way frontage needed along High Street here. So they meet the minimum right-of-way frontage. However, since that creek is right in this location, that is not what they're going to be utilizing to access the lot. They have a cross-access easement shown here that goes all the way across, and actually, you can see here, this loops around. And so really, this is the buildable area. They'll have their fire lane that wraps around the whole building with access points to the Phase 4 development here and here, and then just to kind of see what that looks like. There's Phase 3, another 3-story, 48-unit building, which is why they're doing the plating process tonight. And again, there's no zoning needed for this. Once this plat is approved, they can just move ahead with building permits. So then you can see where they're Phase 4 on the remaining 8.24 acres. So planning and zoning reviewed this last week as well. Staff recommends approval, and the commission voted unanimously to approve as well. Oh, I think the only thing that was in my staff report, the original plat that we attached, I think we got it fixed before your packet, but in my staff report, if you saw, there was 2 different engineers working in Highland Meadows, and so they had originally called this out as Plat 7. Plat 7 and 8 were actually approved previously to the north, and so we had them change this to Plat 9. So just some clarification there.
Any discussion? Accept
to
the
accept.
motion.
Accept.
Okay. Motion by Bear to accept, second by Holtmar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mayor's report.
Welcome to summer, you guys. I don't have a whole lot to say. It's lots of good stuff going on. About to have some more festivals coming up, but I'm glad good stuff is happening, and it is. So, thank you.
We want to mention about the no council meeting on July 3rd.
Yes, I'll do that. If you're ready for me, if you're ready for me to talk.
City Administrator's report.
Okay. We have a couple of things on, as Sherry was alluding to, due to the holiday this year, we're going to skip or forego our normally scheduled July 3rd meeting. The next city council meeting will be on July the 17th. Also, I've talked with Mary a little bit. It's getting budget time, so we're looking at some dates for workshops, just giving you a heads up. We may have one that night at 6 p.m. if we have some information we can give you, but also probably in August at 6 o'clock prior to the meetings, which would be the 7th, looks like the 7th and the 21st for August. We'll probably have some budget workshops. We'll try to just get you here one night and do it at 6 o'clock and just leave the whole entire hour devoted to the budget unless we need something else pressing that comes up. So that's all I have.
Council comments.
Yes, go ahead. It's almost every week now that all these rivers are down and all these boaters are coming to the Missouri River. There's not enough parking, and this overflow lot is locked every weekend, and you got trailers that can't park. So I suggest on Friday night, we unlock the thing, we lock it up on Monday morning.
We can do that. We've talked, after I got your text, whatever, Darrell actually came up with the idea that just letting the sergeants know. The only thing they would like to do is if they can, close it up at night, because just to keep from, we've had problems with people spinning out or doing stuff. I don't know. We'll see we'll play it by ear. Depends on if you got a lot of people parked there overnight.
That's just it, yeah, if you got 4 or 5 trailers,
Yeah, I know.
they need to
A
go
lot of
home.
people come in after dark.
Especially the
Yeah.
fishermen.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to lock it if anybody was still in there. That'd be,
There's something
Yeah,
that you can't hardly.
we wouldn't do that.
And I would add in, it's summertime. Whether that lot's open or not, there's stuff goes on at the riverfront. Doesn't matter if it's gravel or asphalt, so.
right.
It's just a way of life for us, so. Yeah, I know last weekend, 2 weekends ago, the sergeant on duty was monitoring and he did open it up on Saturday. So I haven't talked to the sergeant that worked this past weekend, so I don't know if they did that or not, but
I got a call on Sunday,
Saturday, I think.
Saturday.
Saturday, okay. But I've sent them all emails saying monitor that lot. If we could do that, we could just open it on Friday night if you want, or Saturday morning.
Try it.
Yeah. Wayne?
Not here right now.
Okay.
We'll do it, though.
Okay. Let's just, want to do that? Want to move forward with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll take care of it.
Appreciate it.
Mark?
Yes, yes. I think all of you received, I sent a email out to all of you concerning our upcoming item on our agenda that should be, I assume it's going to be on in July 17th, dealing with the short-term rentals. I went, after we received the recommendations from P&Z and after we had the public meeting concerning that and listening to folks on it, I spent a lot of time reading through it and going through it and so forth. And so what I sent to you was a suggested amendment to P&Z's recommendation. I will be, in fact, out of the country at our next meeting, so I won't be here for it. I wasn't sure the best way to get that amendment, other than to bring it up tonight and ask the council to consider that amendment before the actual motion gets put together, gets pieced together for your next meeting. My issue, and I mentioned it briefly, but just to expand a little bit, when the recommendation came and we had the people get up and speak about it, there were a number of people who liked it, some who didn't, as you might expect. The one thing I found a little bit, I couldn't quite grasp was the idea of it being a compromise. If you live in an R1, I don't see what the compromise was. In other words, anybody who lives anywhere in any other zone, and if they own that property, they can do that. But if you live in R1, you can't do that. You own the property, you cannot do that. You cannot have an STR. I find it strange also because if you own a property in R1, you can rent it for a year, you can rent it for 6 months, you can rent it for 4 months, you know, that's all fine, you can do that. But you may not rent it short-term. And that's the only property owner in Washington, according to, if that gets passed, that cannot do that. Now, I understand that the limitation that was suggested by P&Z, which I agree with, was the 150-foot thing. I understand where in R1 that may be a little bit different, should be different. And so that's why I suggested in the amendment that in R1, if you want to apply for an STR, that's fine. You still have to do a special use permit, but I'm saying they should stay 500 feet because the lots are bigger. You know, if you say 150 feet, you could have them stacked up pretty close. So that's why I said 500 feet. But I would like to suggest that amendment. And I put a little side note on there. I still would like us to look somewhere along the line at that #1 criterion for a special use permit. Actually, it's just the one word. I mean, when they say, and for all of you, one of the criterion for a special use permit is that this use be compatible with the area where it is. And when they say compatible, they say in terms of use and appearance. Well, the appearance isn't the issue that I've ever heard anybody complain about. The issue comes up with compatibility of that use. And like, again, I don't understand the difference between that and a long-term rental, but apparently some people feel there is. So anyway, and Mark, I might need your help with this. I didn't know if it's not even come before us as a suggested ordinance or anything just yet, but it was that recommendation, and not being here, I was wondering if there was some way I could suggest an amendment now on how I would go about that, or or maybe just if the rest of someone else on the council is also in agreement, they could suggest it as an amendment when it's brought up.
Why can't we just table it until the next time?
Well, I thought about that, Wayne. I really did, except that the moratorium was supposed to go till August, and I didn't want to drag it out because those folks, they worked on it for 2 or 3 months, P&Z. So I didn't want to drag it out, that much longer. So,
Well, just what we could do is I could write the ordinance, or I could have Mark help me write the ordinance, or have Mark write the ordinance, for either one, either suggestion to have sent to council, and then you could still discuss it at the next meeting and vote on it in August.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is just we would, unless we heard from a consensus of the council otherwise, and that's why I told Mark, bring it up tonight, if you want to, and if somebody wants a second, his motion about the language on there.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, well, hold on, if you do, then what we could do is, then if that's the case, and there is a, and we feel that, like I said, that we'll add that to what P and Z's recommendation is.
And so to clarify, it would be the same recommendations, except that last one where it says I printed the letter because I knew we were going to be talking about this, that STRs will not be permitted in any other zone district. We would just scratch that, and it would be
R1A,
R1,
R1A, R1B,
or I just said R1, all of them.
all the R1s.
Yeah.
And with a 500-foot buffer.
A new STR will be required to have a special use permit and shall be 500 feet away from any existing STR.
Okay. That would be a simple addition to the current amendment, so.
If you do that, I don't, like I said, I don't know that, I'm trying to think, and Sal helped me out, I don't know that, for example, and I know that the reason why we're all discussing this was the last application that was made up at Riverview. I think that they would have been able to still apply
Oh, yeah.
under his amendment of what he's proposing.
Yes.
They certainly could have been. And the ones that we've had before that did not make it to city council in the past, meaning we had one in Lake Washington, we had one over there in
Deer Run.
Deer Run. Both of those, even though P and Z recommended against it because there was an overwhelming amount of public opposition to it in the neighborhood, they just decided to withdraw their application before it ever went to city council. But I'm just letting you know that if you do that amendment to that, again, that would, up there at Riverview, they would have been able to go ahead and make their application.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think it goes hand in hand with what Mark said, is when we go back and look at that first bullet point in the conditional use, and, there was disagreement amongst us up here about what constitutes, compatibility. And when you have an entire neighborhood think that it's not compatible, to me, that probably says it's not compatible, but we have to define that a little better. I don't know how we do that. I don't know if we can do that. I understand we use the same 10 bullet points for every special use permit.
That's correct.
So do you have to write another one for STRs alone? I don't know.
I-
But really, this compromise is kind of putting us, there's not a whole lot different other than we're saying now you got to be 500 feet away from
That's right.
something existing.
I think what we didn't have 6 months ago as well is the revocation ability. too,
Correct.
Where if there is a problem one, it can get brought up. We didn't, because that
Right.
got, the night after that passed, that was my first phone call I got the next day was, well, if they become a problem, can't they get revoked anyway? So I thought that was worth bringing up.
And I would say with regards to the use, so that first condition on that list of conditional special use permit, where it talks about a compatible use, I guess what they're talking about is, our interpretation of this would be that is, it's still being used as a residence, okay? So if you had a business, let's go a different route and say somebody had a home occupation and they did some type of, maybe they did tax services out of their home or something like that. And they had several people, clients that came, and all of a sudden they start parking in front of the neighbor's house during tax season, et cetera, and it just becomes a little bit more. That's the change in use that you're talking about, because everything else is residential. But you're talking about a business there. When people come and stay at a short-term rental, they are living there, basically, is what they're doing. Now, we did have a situation where somebody had applied and successfully got a special use permit for a short-term rental, and they started wanting to have, they'll shall remain nameless because we took care of the problem, because we told them you can't do that. But there was one that they were trying to do special events. Hey, we're open on Sundays, have your football party here, or whatever, or have your birthday party here, et cetera. Well, that's not a short-term rental, you got an event space.
That's an event center, yeah.
And so
Different
that's not the same. So that's a difference in use. So that's the reason why I don't know that there's necessarily a need to change that. That would be my reply to that concern about that, because I don't, and I know that the folks on Riverview don't look at it that way. I understand that. They just look at it as like, well, that's a business that they're running over there. But the use itself, people are still living there. They're staying there overnight.
Well, and again, I would say that if you rent the place out, is that any less a business? If you rent it out for 6 months, you know, you can do that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying you can.
31 days.
Yeah.
And I understand, absolutely understand where you're coming from, what your opinion of use is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a planning and zoning committee that unanimously turned it down. So there was somebody there that, a lot of people there, that thought it didn't meet use. We send out a letter to every neighbor around it and say, hey, this is coming up if you want to come speak, but are we telling them if you come speak, it really doesn't matter because it fits the use? Why
No,
send the letter then?
I don't think
So,
that. I just
we're kinda
think
in a-
there was some concerns that were raised during that, without going back and trying to be a Monday morning quarterback. I think there was some, like, there was issues that could have been brought up, like parking. Do they have enough parking spaces there for the number of rooms that they want to rent,
Which is
et cetera? Those are conditions.
really what we've looked at in history.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
question that comes up. right?
Absolutely. And a lot of those types of issues, but if you want, if, like I said, we need guidance on what the ordinance is going to look like on July 17th. So if you want that change, and there's three other people besides the two that made the motions that feel that way, we'll make the change in the ordinance. If there's not, then we'll bring forth the ordinance that was recommended from P and Z.
Is that a motion, Mr. Wessels?
My motion is to amend P and Z's recommendation using the verbiage that I sent out, yes.
Second. And Joe second.
Joe seconds. Okay. More discussion before we vote. Time to consider.
You want to do a roll call vote? I think it'd be helpful.
I agree.
Bear?
I can go either way.
Feel your pain.
I feel like, so at the last meeting, and I'm going to keep talking here. The last meeting, I said it, that was the starting point, we could always change it. I feel like this is still a starting point that we can always change, and coupled with the revocation thing, I'll say yes.
Briggs?
No.
Coulter?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So are those on the ordinance?
So, yeah. Hasn't changed, the ordinance hasn't changed, but now we know what to bring back next meeting. Just make that clear.
Don't like it, we can change.
All I got.
Other council comments? Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Holtmeyer, second by Coulter. All those in favor?